Hello my wonderful people and welcome back. If you're wondering what this lump is, it's my hot water bottle, because not only is it cold and wet and just drowsy outside, I am also on my period, which incidentally, I swear I did not plan this, ties in perfectly with the subject of today, because today I will be telling you all about my journey coming off of hormonal birth control, getting my period back or not, all the details. Why am I sharing this? Because I really think there needs to be more information out there, more stories of people on and off of birth control, hormonal birth control, non-hormonal birth control, about PCOS, hypothalamic amenorrhea, all the other things that are out there, because honestly, information can be difficult to find. And it's just not, there's so many things that we're not taught as like young kids. Mind you, this is not a video telling you to go or not go on the pill or whatever. This is just my personal experience, what I did, what I wish I had done, or maybe what I would have done if I had different information. Without further ado, a little backstory. I first got my period when I was 13, and I think I remember right at first being more or less regular, which was kind of special, but then after like a short while that just went all over the place, which makes sense. You know, you're in puberty, it's fine, your period is just starting, it's strange, it's new. Other than that, I never had very severe symptoms. Like, yes, I did get cramps and, you know, stomach aches, but not that badly. I decided to go on the pill when I was 15, which was mainly because of acne. So when I went to the GP for that, he told me, go on the pill, you know, it'll clear your skin up a bit, and you might as well, because you're 15, so, you know, you might get into sex and stuff. So it might be a good idea anyway to go on the pill. So I did, you know, I went on the pill. I was on it for 8 years, just about 8 years. And then, like, I was on the pill, it was fine. I loved to be able to control when I was gonna get my period. And other than that, I never really much thought about it. I went through through most of my teenage years on the pill. It was fine. Like, I never actively knew whether or not I had, you know, side effects from the pill. So then just over a year and a half ago, I just turned 23, and I had been thinking, like, maybe I want to quit. Not necessarily because I was scared of like all these things you were hearing about the pill being bad and everything, just because I was wondering, like, who am I without this? Because, you know, it is hormones, so hormones basically influence everything that you do, that you think, that you are, how your body works. And the contraceptive pill regulates some of those hormones and thereby influencing you. That doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, it's just what it does. So I was just like wondering, who am I when I'm not on the pill? So I decided to quit. I finished my last strip, then I had my last withdrawal bleed. And then I think I read on the internet that your period should resume more or less after 3 months. However, it could take up to 6. So I was just waiting, just living my life. I didn't really notice many effects from quitting straight away. However, I think one of the first things I noticed was my energy going up. It's very difficult to explain. Like, I felt sharper or more present. And that's something I still really stand by. I also stand by the fact that I never really suffered from the pill, from being on it. However, that was like my first big takeaway, that I felt much more in tune with me, myself, my body, and just felt more present in general. Anywho, so after 3 months, nothing had happened. So I made an appointment with the GP. However, like a few days before the appointment were to take place, I got some spotting. So I thought, oh, maybe this is, you know, my body kicking things into gear. So I cancelled the appointment, and then it was just spotting for like 2 days and it was gone again. So I was like, well, you know, maybe this is something, I'ma just wait it out a bit longer. But then another 3 months passed and nothing happened again. So by now it had been 6 months since quitting and I had had no period. So I made an appointment, it was now summertime, I made an appointment with the GP, and when I got there, I was kind of expecting her to tell me, you know, it's gonna, just be patient, it might take a while, don't worry. Instead, she gave me a referral to go see a gynecologist, which made me realize that maybe it was serious or something could be wrong. However, you know, I wasn't that worried yet. So another like month passed and I was there with the gynecologist. So he like, I had an like, what's it called, an internal ultrasound, I think. It's like where they get a camera and sort of go into your vagina area and then they just have a look at your ovaries and your uterus and anything. And then the gynecologist, he told me, yeah, I think you have PCOS, but you need to get blood work done to be sure. Okay. I had my blood work done, and according to the blood work I did, which was only like a few things, I think I got my LH tested, which is luteinizing hormone. I had my FSH tested, I think, which is your follicle stimulating hormone. I think there were like 2 or 3 things that I got tested then. And out of those came indeed PCOS. I responded in 2 ways to this news. One, I got pretty sad and like emotional. I still get a bit emotional about it. Because for quite a while I've known that I really want kids. I mean, not now, but I want them. And to be told like, yeah, you can have kids, but you might struggle with it at 23 years old when it's not really on your mind yet is kind of tough to hear. And then secondly, I went into full-on research mode. I read, I watched like full-on congresses and very explicit YouTube videos. I listened to a couple podcasts, like a ton of podcasts really. And the biggest takeaway from this, there is so much we don't know about our own bodies. If you are someone who has a vagina, have you in school had any sort of like classes about how it all works, how your system works, how all these hormones influence everything? So I'm very happy with all the research that I did and with all the knowledge I have now. I just wish I would have had at least some of this when I was 10 years younger to make more informed decisions about birth control and about, I don't know, a ton of stuff. Through my research, I kind of realized that with the tests that had been done on me, I couldn't be sure whether or not I actually had PCOS, because I also pretty much fit the profile of something called hypothalamic amenorrhea. Explanation mode. PCOS, what this is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is a not so great name. This is an actual like menstrual disorder, which means basically your body will ovulate less often. So it will struggle to ovulate, and because you struggle to ovulate, 2 things will happen. One is, if you don't ovulate, you don't get a period. So if you ovulate less often, you will less often get a period, which of course explained in my case why I was not getting any periods at all. And 2, because your body will try to ovulate, your ovaries will like choose the egg cell that's gonna be the one for this cycle, and then they're gonna make that one grow and grow and grow. But then the last step, which is the egg being released from the sort of surrounding cell and then moving down the fallopian tube in order to potentially be fertilized, it just sort of stays there. And then the next time, or the next month, your body will do that again. So they will try and build up this egg and to get it released, but if it doesn't release again, it will just stay there. So what happens is you get these cysts, or all these sort of tiny, nearly full-grown eggs chilling in your ovaries So that's why it's called polycystic. This is something you can see in an ultrasound. You will have like multiple cysts literally on your ovaries. That's why it's called polycystic ovarian syndrome. However, the most recent way of diagnosing PCOS is through something called the Rotterdam criteria. Look this up if you want to. And you have to have at least 2 out of the 3 criteria in order to get the diagnosis PCOS. One of them being the polycystic ovaries, one of them being oligoamenorrhea, which basically means irregular or non-existent periods, and lastly excess androgens, which can manifest in multiple ways. Now androgens are known as male hormones, so like testosterone and a few types of testosterone. However, this is not really true. Like, yes, most people assigned male at birth will have higher testosterone levels than most people assigned female at birth. However, any person has testosterone in their body, just like any person has estrogen in their body. It's just that the levels of these and what is considered normal ranges differ from person to person. So if you have PCOS, you likely will have relatively high levels of testosterone in your body. And with a lot of people who have PCOS, this causes hirsutism, which is hair growth, like excess hair growth. I hope this made sense. To resume, PCOS, you need 2 out of 3 Rotterdam criteria, 1 polycystic ovaries, 2 absent or very irregular periods, and 3 higher levels of types of testosterone, high androgens. So you have this PCOS on the one side, which was what I was told I had, which I thought I had, but then I found all this information about something called hypothalamic amenorrhea. Now, I am a little less familiar with it, so bear with me while I try to explain. Hypothalamic amenorrhea is not a menstrual disorder, but rather something where lifestyle will cause lack of periods, really. It is basically a situation where the body cannot ovulate. So due to stress on the body, it cannot ovulate and therefore cannot release an egg, and therefore might represent symptoms such as polycystic ovaries. So PCOS can be misdiagnosed as hypothalamic amenorrhea and vice versa. The profile for hypothalamic amenorrhea, or HA for short, is people who exercise a lot, especially high intensity exercise. It is people who have a focus on healthy living, healthy eating, and or have disordered eating habits, and from that come certain results in blood tests which will prove or disprove HA. As maybe you can imagine, as I learned about this HA thing existing, I got a bit worried and also scared that maybe I did not have PCOS, but I had that, because I have a history of disordered eating, even though I am doing very well now and I am eating properly now. I do have a history of that, and of course I train a lot. I kind of treat myself like an athlete. Like, I train 6 days a week for an hour, sometimes even not, sometimes an hour and a bit, which is unnecessary for someone who's not an athlete, and which, you know, can be read as excessive. Now, for me, this is what works. So I wasn't worried about it ever until I read about this, and I got really, really nervous, because I was worried that if I had this, that would mean I would have to decrease my training and or increase my food intake more, which is scary. Because I'm very happy where I am now, both physically and mentally, and the idea of having to change that was terrifying, really, and also made me realize that yes, I've come a long way on healing from all these past things, but there's also a bit of a way to go. As I said, I had some blood work done, but only a few things, and through my research I realized that in order to be sure which of these two things I had, I would need additional testing. So I went back to my GP, I explained all this to her, and then I asked her, like, I want to get this and this and this additional testing done, is that okay? And luckily she agreed. She also told me, I think it really is PCOS, but if you want this, then sure, yes, you can get this testing done. I got all these additional tests done, and after getting the results, it turned out, indeed, I do have PCOS. This was a very mixed thing to hear, because on the one hand, I was really relieved that I had not caused this myself, but it was just, I have this disorder going on, which I can't really help. Because the other side of it potentially being HA was that even though it would be really difficult and it was daunting, I could do something about it. Like, I could change my regime, I could change my diet in order to get my period back. But that wasn't the case, because I actually do have PCOS and I do have this disorder, so it can't be helped. Yeah, so throughout all of this research and doctor's visits and just life happening at the same time, my cycle went all over the place. So for the first half year I had nothing, absolutely nothing. Then I had, I think, one period, then I had nothing again for a long time. Then I had like cycles of 12 days, 40 days, 80 days, 30 days. It was all over the place. As I continued my research, I also went into like more, I guess you'd call them alternative ways of healing, more holistic views on nutrition, on hormones, on gut health. So the one thing I have been trying, which I think is helping my period with, even though I have PCOS, is seed cycling. Look it up, it's very easy. It's eating specific seeds in one part of your cycle and then specific other seeds in another part of your cycle. So that's what I've been trying, and I have had a sort of breakthrough, because for 4 or 5 cycles in a row have been shorter than 45 days. They've still been pretty varied. Like, the shortest one was 28 days exactly, which is like the perfect cycle, so that was a very exciting time. And most of them have been like anywhere between 35 and 42 days. But to me, that is a victory, a true victory. Like, before this, I had cycles of 75 days or longer or very short, or it was a mess. And now at least I somewhat know what seems to be going on. So this is, I think, pretty much my story. Main takeaways or short recap: I quit the pill after being on it for 8 years. It made me realize that I had a lot, like an entire mess going on inside of me, which I had no idea about. I found out I have PCOS. However, I am very grateful to say that I have very few external symptoms of PCOS. So for instance, I do have higher testosterone levels, however I do not have excess hair growth, I do not have hirsutism. I am not here to advocate on behalf of or against the pill or hormonal birth control in general. I do wish that I had had some of this information 10 years ago when I was considering going on it, because I would have made a more informed decision. And in my case, I reckon I might have made a different decision. But that's because I now know that I have PCOS and that I have likely had PCOS for a long time, or like ever since I got my period. However, what the pill does is it hides your symptoms, or it hides your disorders you might have because of all these hormones it's pumping into your body. So I just didn't know I had PCOS, because at first I was in puberty, so irregular periods are normal, and then I was on the pill for 8 years. I wish I'd known some of this information earlier to at least be able to make a more informed decision. And if for you or for anyone that decision is to go on it or to go on some other form of contraception, that's all good. Do what works for you, you know? Oh yeah, and of course my final takeaway, which is kind of important, I stand by that I never really had very bad side effects from being on hormonal birth control. However, I have noticed a few differences. One of them being feeling much more in tune with myself and my body and just being more present. That's the biggest one. My energy being way more stable. And I mean, my libido definitely has increased since quitting. It's nothing insane, but it definitely has increased. Yeah, I think that's the 3 biggest differences I've noticed since quitting. Yeah, I guess that's it. I hope this made any sort of sense. If you have any follow-up questions, please put them in the comments below. Or if you want, you can find me on Instagram and you can just send me a DM, have any questions. I'm very open about it, so don't be afraid to reach out. And then I guess I will catch you very soon in the next video.